What's up, everybody? Welcome to Gojo with Mike Golick Jr. That is me. With me, as always, entirely ready for Mortal Kombat, Brandon Newman. Brandon, what's going on?
Are you not entertained? No, that's not what they say.
I would say it's definitely not Mortal Kombat.
Finish him is what they say.
Yeah, or get over here.
Well, that's what Scorpion says specifically. But how you doing, Mike?
I'm good, Brandon. I'm good. We got a great show today. Little housekeeping for people that are used to the normal weekly workflow around here. As always, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review to Gojo wherever you get your podcast. That 5-star rating and a review. And also make sure to check us out on the DraftKings YouTube channel as well under the Gojo of Mike Golick Jr. tab. I say housekeeping because it is Wednesday. Usually people around here have gotten used to and accustomed to us having a guest, especially us having our friend Charlotte Wilder for a Wilder Wednesday. Here, because of some scheduling stuff, we are going to move that to tomorrow. My father, Mike Golick Sr., is going to be joining us for Friday. And so normally Monday and Friday are Gojo and Brandon shows. This week we're shifting that around a little bit. So if this looks and sounds different, is because it is a little bit different. Because we're all doing our best around the holidays with all the travel time going. Does that sound all right, Brandon?
Sounds great to me, Mike, but I do need to borrow a pen from you.
All right, I will go look for that right now. You can start the rest of the show, which we do have a good one for you guys today. We heard from one NFL player that had gone dormant and dark for a long time, and we were all very excited to hear about this. And Brandon has brought a unique premise to me here. Someone has gone out and invented an award. We want to try and do the same. We will get to that here shortly, Brandon. But I want to give you credit, Brandon, because I think you spoke something into existence yesterday.
What?
You're so frazzled looking for this pen.
Mike, I can't right now, Mike. When you talk, I'm producing, I'm writing the things down, the notes, like I see all, and to go into this thing blind is a little bit nerve-wracking. Feeling a little bit like Andrew Luck for multiple reasons, but what are you talking about?
Well, I was talking about yesterday, we brought up the fact that Baker Mayfield was being released by the Carolina Panthers,
yes.
And by all accounts, that was a mutual move. Baker Mayfield and that camp said that they asked to be released when he found out he wasn't going to be the starting quarterback or the backup quarterback going forward in Carolina.
Yes.
And everyone immediately thought, well, the San Francisco 49ers have Jimmy Garoppolo, who we thought was going to be out for the season. Why wouldn't they go after him? And you brought up maybe someone would thinking about swiping them just to keep the 49ers from picking him up. Would anyone think about doing that? And sure enough, as fate would have it, the Los Angeles Rams claimed Baker Mayfield off waivers. So they will be.
You think that was a block?
Well, Brandon, I want to see how deep this goes because I saw some people supposing about this possibility on the internet. Now, walk with me.
Okay.
So, the Rams will now inherit the $1.35 million left on Baker's contract. The Rams, who just put Matthew Stafford on IR because of a spinal cord contusion that sidelined him since the Rams' Week 11 loss to the Saints, have been dealing with different backup quarterbacks. They started Bryce Perkins before. They've started John Wolford before. And so now bringing in Baker Mayfield, they talked about it. Liam Cohen, their offensive coordinator, said this is talent acquisition. This is what we're doing. Sure, sounds good. They were the only team to put in a waiver claim on Baker Mayfield, source told ESPN's Field Yates. We get that right before we get the news that Jimmy Garoppolo may not actually be done for the year. Sources told Adam Schefter Tuesday the doctors concluded Jimmy G did not suffer a Lisfranc injury in his broken left foot and won't need surgery. And so if rehab goes well, he might return in 7 to 8 weeks, sources said, which would have him there in time to possibly be a part of a postseason run for them. So Brandon, now I've seen people wondering, did Sean McVay and the 49ers Miyagi the Rams into taking Baker Mayfield when in actuality they were never going to need him to begin with?
Oh my God, the puppet masters, Mike. And what if Christian McCaffrey was the one who's actually had the hands on it? Like, y'all better not bring him over here.
Trust me, you don't want to do this.
I had a couple weeks. I don't like these smells. I don't like his attitude. Please don't bring them into this locker room.
It is interesting to consider. So now, obviously, for the Rams, like, this does make some semblance of sense, right? Going down the stretch of the season, you saw how prideful that team is. They're still, like, everyone a part of that organization is still trying to win. They've nuked all their picks, so it doesn't really behoove them to do much else. They need someone to trot out there, and if the rest of those guys are getting banged up, Baker Mayfield is there. He is cheap, yada, yada, yada. But for the 49ers, this is a massive coup, right? Jimmy G possibly being able to come back in the postseason, because now if this defense and their rookie quarterback can tread water for a bit, Jimmy G coming back being less than 100% is still more about the knowledge that he brings to this offense, his decision-making there. Even though I did hear Dominique Foxworth on his podcast point out the fact that Jimmy G's numbers traditionally in the playoffs for the Niners have not been great. He's not played stellar football for them in the postseason. So I thought that was a good point by Dominique over there. But
I thought it was
still,
the only thing I thought it was the only thing that is why people shit on Jimmy G. Because he is a regular season hero. He wins a lot of games in regular seasons. It is those moments. It's how he loses those playoff games as well.
Yeah, there's always a part of that. And the fact that, again, the foil usually is on the other side, this great defense. We see the ultimate version of that frustration with the Broncos right now. But for the 49ers, you really had, when healthy, usually one of the best defenses in the NFL. The core pieces of that group have been there for a while. And so when you've got that on one side and you've got an offense with a coordinator that's a deadly weapon in the NFL, and all you need in theory is a quarterback to not go out there and screw things up, that's, I think, why Jimmy G draws a lot of the ire, because we see this is an offense that can trot out a rookie quarterback after the first quarter and still go out and beat a very good Miami Dolphins team.
Yes, Mike, but to talk about Baker Mayfield, is this his future, or is he getting ready to, play in the Grey Cup next year? I need to know, because I really do see him as like the perfect CFL quarterback for the Canadian Football League, and that's not a slight, but I just he's too magnetic, and he's too much of a personality for him not to actually be leading a football team.
Well, I think it's less leading a football team and more what the role of a backup requires, right?
Yeah.
And there was no guarantee when he went down to Carolina that he would be the starter. That was always, I believe, posed as a quarterback battle between him and Sam Darnold, the way that was framed. So it was always there in theory, but every quarterback's got that choice to make, right? Am I going to sunset potentially into that idea of becoming a backup in this league?
Yes, of course. Because it's a good get if you can do it.
It is a good gig. What you just brought up there was what used to always be said about Cam Newton, right? Was that he was too magnetic in the locker room to be in a backup role, because especially at the juncture that he joined the Patriots in, there might have been a thought that there was still ability left in there that could be reclaimed, that Cam's very much the guy out in front of the team, and so that would subvert any of the young player trying to grow into that role that you might have wanted for the offense at that point with Mac Jones.
Right. And also Mac Jones was good. I mean, he was ready. I think if Mac Jones wasn't where he was, then the Patriots may have held on to Cam Newton. Actually, with the COVID stuff and I was gonna
say part of that was Cam Newton missed time at a pivotal juncture in camp where Mac Jones then started to go out and perform really well with that opportunity. Right. But I also think the difference is obviously Cam Newton had been a league MVP. Cam Newton had been a guy that had taken a team to a Super Bowl. He had lived up to the billing as a number one overall pick for so long. For Baker Mayfield, it had been mixed results, and then he was hurt. So now if you're Baker Mayfield walking into a team, there's not the same magnetism where you look and you see the embers of what once was. You see a guy that's trying to hold on to what he's got right now, and I think there's a difference there, and we'll see. We don't know anything about what kind of teammate Baker Mayfield was in Carolina, right? We didn't see publicly any of the brashness. We didn't hear any of the things that were fallout from that time in Cleveland after the Odell Beckham Jr. drama about who did fit in that offense and why. None of that came out of Carolina, so we don't know if there is any of that to worry about. We don't know if there's baggage here. We just know he's a bigger personality than we're used to seeing for a lot of backup quarterbacks, at least on paper.
And can dance very well. I can't get over the Madden commercials when he first got into the league.
How long do you think, because I remember the first Baker Mayfield dancing video was at a bowl game that Oklahoma was at. That was what spawned all of it. And I feel like that is like Drew Lock rapping Jeezy on the sideline, where that gave him another year in his career that wouldn't have existed otherwise.
Right, yes. I'm not going to go there, but yes, it definitely gets some legs up under him. It may have solidified the what commercials is it? Geico?
Oh, no, it wasn't Geico.
I want to say Home Depot, but it definitely wasn't.
No,
that.
it was an insurance company. I think it was
State Farm?
It was State.
We leave the lights on.
No. No, Progressive. I should have guessed.
Progressive.
Cleveland, it's Progressive Field out there. Yeah,
oh, yes.
At home with Progressive commercials, which were incredible. Again, honestly, this is the opportunity. Baker Mayfield is now near Hollywood, where he belongs.
Ooh, yes.
The best acting quarterback in the NFL right now, bar none. Matthew Stafford did a good job in those AT&T commercials after the Super Bowl, but he's on the shelf right now. And so who is healthy and able to scoop up those ads while he's in town? Baker Mayfield.
Okay. Now we're in the new media thing. Last thing, and then we can move on. Podcast that will go number one in sports. Already know. Johnny Manziel, Baker Mayfield coming together. Money Mayfield, or Baker Money. I don't know. There's something there. Like they were too similar.
Oh, no, dude. I got it for you. I'll add a third leg to that one right now. And I'll say, because we'll get to what Odell Beckham Jr.'s future looks like when we get to this, that, and the third.
Yeah.
But if Odell, in the meantime, wanted to be on a podcast, you could call it OBJ. Odell, Baker, Johnny.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I like that. Now I'm thinking more ensemble casts of like kind of what Pat McAfee's doing, but just all first round draft pick quarterbacks for the Browns.
All
like
of the
Brady Quinn is hosting.
Oh my God. Brandon Whedon, Brady Quinn, Johnny Manziel.
I'd listen.
Yeah, honestly. Download, subscribe, rate, and review. Brown like me.
Oh,
that's probably going to be interpreted wrong.
Yeah, that's wrong. Yeah. What can Brown do for you? No, something. Dumpster fire. Ooh, something like that. That'd be good.
Oh, man. Make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review that. It will be interesting, too, because Baker's not walking into a good situation either, right? All of their good players are hurt. Their offensive line was already hurt. Like, Baker Mayfield's not being put in a spot where he's going to be able to succeed. And so none of this is built to last. This seems to just be the side of a dam that's popping holes in it, and you're just trying to plug fingers in it as you go if you're the Rams at this point.
Yeah. Okay. This is my brain when I don't have a pen. What if Cliff Kingsbury said? Could you imagine Baker backing up Kyler? That quarterback? Oh my gosh.
Man, what a role reversal from their time at Oklahoma to now. The student has become the teacher.
Yes. Go. Move on. Do it now.
Yeah. So that is that tangled web of news. The only other thing before we get to the Andrew Luck stuff, Brandon, that was wild in the NFL, the Titans fired their GM in the middle of the season.
Yeah.
After extending him in February.
Also the best team in the AFC South.
Right. Now, which, again, we can debate if that's really an accomplishment worth merit, but,
right.
Again, they still deserve credit. They are a playoff team right now at 7-5, but their owner, Amy Adams Strunk, came out and said that she did not think her roster was being maximized. Now, a lot of people are pointing to the fact that this comes the week after they just got blown up by A.J. Brown, the guy that they traded away at the draft, by the Eagles this last weekend, and that was sort of the straw that broke the camel's back. But Brandon, there's something we're still missing in this situation, at least in my mind, because you extended this guy in February. So clearly you thought enough of the job being done. Now, we can talk about what those mean, because in college football, this happens all the time where you're extending people for even the smallest inkling of success, coach or otherwise, because you're trying to show to players, boosters, recruits, hey, we're stable here and you can commit to us. It's a different world in college football. That's why you've seen Jimmy Sexton able to go out there and negotiate those 10-year-long deals for coaches, because you've got pressure in the marketplace that they're exploiting. In the NFL, I don't really understand why there'd be that same sort of pressure. But we saw this happen in Arizona. You brought up Kyler Murray. They extended everyone. They extended Cliff. They extended Steve Keim. They extended Kyler Murray, even though all of them seem to be on shaky ground right now in one form or the other. And so I won't act like every extension makes the most sense to us. But you extended John Robinson, and then you went through, and this is the other part that I would need to hear about, is for Amy Adams Strunk to make this decision and for us to believe it was related to this A.J. Brown ass whooping that they took this weekend, you would also then have to believe that she didn't sign off on this around the draft, which seems insane that an owner would sign off on a GM going out and doing something with their money or their team that they weren't at the very least aware of, at least if not, fully in favor of at the time being. And I saw Buck Rising, who does a great job covering the Titans down in Nashville, wrote an article about some of the other misses that had gone on with this team, pointed to Jadeveon Clowney's acquisition, Julio Jones last year, some of those other things. But again, all of those, besides the A.J. Brown trade, predated the extension in February. And so for this to happen now, in the middle of the season, while this team is still in first place in that division, the math ain't mathin' right now. And so I am going to sit around and wait for what we find out next about this situation, because if this is just a football move and you want to give more control to Mike Vrabel, who you trust based on the job that he's been able to do with this roster, we call him MacGyver all the time, usually because of what they deal with on the injury front, right? They've had an injured quarterback this year. They had an injured running back last year, and they still always find their way into the mix. Now it appears like they're ready to give MacGyver a chance to go out there and pick more of the parts that he's going to go to work with. We'll see how that works out, but something still doesn't smell right here.
I mean, talking about the math not mathing, Mike, didn't the Tennessee Titans use that first-round pick they got for A.J. Brown on wide receiver Treylon Burks in the draft? Now, Treylon Burks has obviously done well, but they just gave the Eagles their best wide receiver since Terrell Owens.
Yeah. No, which, again, if you wanted to tell me that was a fireable offense at the time, or that was a move you didn't condone at the time, I'd be willing to hear it. And maybe you're looking out this season at the way your passing game hasn't materialized, again, if you're Tennessee. And maybe seeing it in person could have been too much, but man, that seems reactive in a way that would be indicative of bad business, right? Like, again, it just feels like something else had to be adding up there, because you had been so far in the other direction despite lumping in with this other moves that had happened before you chose to give this person more money in years to be in your organization. Like, he gets to walk away, I think, with like 4 more years that he's getting paid. Like, that's incredible. And again, if the draft record has not turned out the way that you've wanted it to, which they have had some first-round busts in there, the offensive lineman out of Georgia they took a couple years ago, all these things that you can point to. But again, why did you extend this person in February then? Why didn't you make this move then?
It's confusing, but it does seem like, talking about showing a sign of strength or stability, it seems like the message is, in Mike Vrabel we trust. Yeah. Regardless of anything else, right? And I think as shaky as it was, or the competition of manliness when Man Campbell hit the scene and the Lions are doing the thing, it seems like Mike Vrabel is kind of steady Eddie.
Yeah, no, he's definitely the one to bet on right now. He's done an exemplary job. It's just now going to be, all right, can he pull off what very few coaches do well, which is do the coach and pseudo GM thing? Because even if they get another body in there, it sounds like, based on what I saw by the writing by Buck, that Mike Vrabel is expected to be a guy with more control over the roster, and we'll see how often that does work out. But it just kind of a head scratcher here again. And Mike Vrabel was also extended in February at the same time that John Robinson was. So again, I'm not really sure what to make of this, other than the story feels incomplete right now, and so we'll wait for if anything else comes from this situation before we kind of render a final judgment. But Brandon, final judgment, kind of what we finally got out of this Andrew Luck situation. So ever since Andrew Luck went and retired in one of the most shocking NFL moments that I can remember, I was on the road in a hotel coming back from calling a high school football game, and I had gotten delayed, and so I had to stay an extra night in the hotel down in Miami. I think I'd actually driven up maybe to Fort Lauderdale to fly out of the airport there. But either way, I was in the hotel. I had just gotten out of the shower, and I came back into the room, and it was preseason, but also like week zero of college football. And so I think Miami was playing that weekend. I remember Brevin Jordan doing really well, their tight end. And then all of the news coming out about Andrew Luck retiring from the NFL. And it was news that leaked during a preseason game. ESPN's Adam Schefter started coming out with that reporting. And then everything changed from there. And ever since then, he's been gone. And we've all been waiting around for that moment where he would eventually step back into the limelight. And there have been inklings of it along the way, right? Last year before I left ESPN, the college football playoff national title was in Indianapolis at Lucas Oil. And RG3 and Andrew Luck were on the pregame show together, which, man, wrap your minds around that 10 years ago and see how that feels. But we all wait.
And also, when they've, I don't know if it's just Colts fandom or I need to stay off Indianapolis Twitter, but every time there's been a vacancy, there's been the rumblings of, are they going to call Andrew Luck again?
And for the longest time, we thought there was no chance and that Andrew Luck was gone and he was happy and he had made one of the more effortless transitions getting away from football that we had seen anyone do, because he honestly almost disappeared in the middle of the night like the Colts team that went to Baltimore. Like... It was, or I forget if I had that right. I forget. They
left Baltimore in the middle of the night. They left Baltimore in the middle of the night to Indianapolis.
Right. Yeah. Strike that. Reverse it. But, it appears we were a little wrong about that. So Seth Wickersham, ESPN writer who does a phenomenal job. Normally, the case is if you are an organization and you see Seth Wickersham starting to poke around your building, something's about to get exposed inside there in a long-form piece that is going to read very well. In this case, Seth said that he had sent Andrew Luck a letter back in like 2019 and basically said he wanted to write the piece about him. Andrew Luck in the piece said that, when the time was right, it would happen. And he spent days over the course of 5 months with Andrew Luck kind of catching up on where he was life-wise. And I'll say this, Brandon, because you and I are Andrew Luck's age. We were in the Army All-American game coming out of high school with Andrew as one of the quarterbacks on the West team. I have a vivid memory standing in the tunnel before that game of some goofy kid with a scraggly beard coming up behind me and going, I think our dads played together for the Oilers. Before I went to go hang out with my Notre Dame friends, not thinking that years later I might want to borrow money from him. But
oh my gosh. Yeah, I was, to give context, starting quarterback for the West, Andrew Luck, starting quarterback for the East, Terrell Pryor.
Yeah. Starting quarterbacks for the West, Dane Christ, our good buddy and listener to the podcast, and Blaine Gabbert, who I think might be the only quarterback from that game still in the NFL. I think Blaine's still somewhere.
Still only quarterback still in the NFL, yeah.
Yeah, from that game. But I digress. So all that is to say is, we were coming up at the same time Andrew was, and he was one of the biggest prospects ever. And then he was gone. And in reading this, I realized that I mistook Andrew Luck's silence and absence from the limelight, stepping away from the game, for ease in the transition from football, because this whole thing is basically showing that Andrew Luck is a lot more like everyone who leaves football than we anticipated. Like, everyone just saw smart Stanford guy and assumed that he made the transition, or at least, I shouldn't project and say everyone. I saw smart Stanford guy who had a lot going for him off the field and assumed, okay, he stepped away and he was ready to be done with all that stuff. We had seen him banged up a bunch in there. They talk extensively about how bad the recovery from his shoulder injury was, how after he came back and had the season that he did in 2017 or 2018, the ankle and lower body injuries that started to get that, oh, here we go again feeling back in his head. They talked about all that stuff. And so I thought, this guy's tired. This guy knows he has other things that he can do off the field, and he was content with that. And Brandon, it seemed like he was anything but.
Obviously, yes. This article lays out the fact that he was as perturbed as most of us who are forced to leave the game, or in some way. And I guess obviously this is what we're talking about. He wasn't forced. He He called his own number,
Yeah.
which a lot of people don't get an opportunity to do, Mike. But the difference is between Andrew Luck and the rest of us schmucks is how gifted and talented Andrew Luck was at the thing. Like, I think that for me to have any similarities or to read that article and feel seen by Andrew Luck, somebody who had as much success as he had in college, while I was scout team player of the year, my senior year at Notre Dame, like there's a little bit of difference, like the level of pain that I think I have connected to the game, emotional and all that type of stuff, and all that type of crap.
But I think that's the point, is that transition's hard for everybody, no matter your station in the game, right? Like, I'm sure that transition was hard for you, leaving football with your own attachment and your own experience in the game.
Yeah, but I feel like my issue was I felt like I didn't give the game enough because I couldn't, because I felt like I would lose myself if I did. And this is scary to hear that he's feeling like he gave everything and he lost himself in that.
Yeah, and that's very much the message in all this, right? And that was one of the things I kind of took away from this was there are so many things that are great about sports that they can teach us. One of the things he hit on constantly was this uber accountability. They talked about he got a chance to go and speak to a high school team, and that was one of those places he got the itch to start getting back to where he is now. He's in grad school at Stanford. He wants to get into teaching or coaching, and that came from being back in front of these players. And I think even in that moment, as he's talking about the parts of the game that you love and remember, at a high enough level, sports can bring out the best and worst parts of you. Like, it can draw out all of those parts, but when you give so much of yourself to it, and so much of the problem athletes usually have leaving is this identity thing of I am what I do. And we hear people say that all the time. I never really understood that. Like, it's it's what I do. It's not who I am. Man, after a while, that line's blurry for all of us. In an honest moment, walking away when you've been used to being like, just being big, being physically larger in life, having yourself associated with something else that matters, whether it was the Golden Dome for us or the Colts for Andrew Luck or whatever your accomplishments were in the career. At some point, those are the things you wear that have made you special walking into every room you've ever been a part of. And when those are gone, now all of a sudden there's a lot to grapple with.
Yeah. And also the identity of something, constantly being reminded of something that you're not. I think that's the biggest thing for me, Mike, because like I am the way I am and the size that I am, and no one mistakes me for a swimmer. No one sees me and is like, oh, did you play baseball? At some point, like, people look at me and think I still play football. And to be so many years removed from something that gave me so much happiness, to constantly be reminded by strangers with a smile on their face that I am what I know that I'm not anymore, that thing, that hurts sometimes.
It absolutely does, because for so much of us, and for Andrew Luck in here, he talked about being reminded of who he felt like he left down. Because that was the other part of this that I think is fascinating insight. Most people don't want to hear about the problems of people with money. Like, that's right.
True.
And I've always tried to make the point, because we have a lot of friends that have played pro football. I've heard a lot of our friends who play pro football's problems. They're different. They're relative problems. Everyone's got relative problems in their station in life. And if you're someone who's around in the circle of those people and they're your friends, you care about those problems because they're theirs. Just because they're different doesn't make them less valid, even though hearing them out loud, most people will go, well, you don't have to deal with X, Y, or Z. And that's true. And in this case with Andrew, it's interesting to think about, because what we got here was insight into what it's like, the true pressure that goes into being that number one overall pick from someone who is actually willing to be vulnerable on the back end of that. Because most of these guys are armored cars, right? Drew Brees right now seems like goes in. The first time we saw vulnerability was his media career not going the way he wanted. The Mannings have instantly transitioned into an empire right now. John Elway is the owner of a team. On and on down the list. A lot of these guys that we see are armored cars, are pillars of power coming off of the sport from the positions like that, and they never break the mold on that. We get a lot closer to Russell Wilson's, where I still have the opportunity opportunity to make money being that guy that I was for so long. And so why am I going to break character on that? For Andrew Luck, he kind of let the guard down and said, no, this isn't who I wanted to be. Or at least that's what he's telling us now, is this is a version I was uncomfortable with, because again, there's different kinds of pressure in these jobs. I was a back end of the roster guy in the NFL trying to make it. I didn't know if I was going to be on the team. And for a lot of guys who are undrafted guys who make the team, but are the 53rd guy on the roster, there's a pressure of not knowing if you're going to have a job every week. If all of a sudden a starting corner goes down, so they need to sign somebody else at that position and you become expendable, there's a pressure with that. There's also a pressure of being drafted as the top overall pick in an organization at quarterback with the gifts he has, and being expected not only to be everything for your teammates, be everything for that team, but be everything to a city that cares an awful lot about that. Where everywhere you go, you're that guy for those people. And he talked about feeling like everything he did had to be towards that end. And don't get me wrong, it's incredibly financially lucrative. On the back end, Andrew Luck gets the chance to have the buffer he does, to go and take trips, to go and take time away, to not have to rush into anything, because his bank account's not going to hurt for that. He made generational, life-changing money out of all of this, but it didn't help him grapple with this on the other side. It didn't make that any less of a problem. It might have made it a slightly bit easier to deal with, but again, he's got problems that 99% of us are never going to know anything about, and they're different. And they might not put him at a financial disadvantage, but they're still interesting to consider based on someone who finally let us into a room that most of us, like you said, we'll never know what it's like to be as good at the thing that we do as Andrew Luck is. And it was fascinating to watch someone trying to rewire years of being that they had lived.
Yes, but I think that's the problem, that the thing that gives me the most pause with this is to hear just how much he hurts thinking about the thing that he was so successful at, Mike. Like the fact that he lives in his home 30 minutes north of Indianapolis. It says he's 5 minutes from the Colts facility, drives by it every day, but in his home just recently got the gumption, the gusto to start decorating his home with football memorabilia, and it's 99% Stanford apparel, and not the where he is. But like, I it's hard for me to wrap my mind around him being so just downtrodden for something that really gave so many others so much joy and happiness. Like, he did a good job while he was there.
Yeah, but the ending was traumatic, and I think that's the one part that's so different about his story, is not only was he a young person retiring at a position like that, a premium position, way sooner than we were used to seeing, but it also didn't happen on his terms. It got leaked in the middle of the game. Like, he talked about being in tears in that locker room, not even having had time to tell it to all his teammates. He had told it to some of them, but like, he got that thrown on him in a way that was traumatic. All of it makes you feel like, again, when you've been made to believe, hey, I owe this to everyone around me to go out here and be the best I possibly can at this thing. Like they talked about in that article, Frank Reich, who was the coach at the time that he retired, addressed the rest of the organization and said, now we're going to figure out and feel how the other half lives. Like, that's so real, because you plan for so long. We're watching all of these teams right now, whether it's the fuck them picks teams, whether it's the teams that are tanking for whatever the next generational quarterback that comes out is. They're all planning for this spot. You mortgage your future to try and get this one position right, and then you get it. You actually do the thing. But it doesn't last you they said in this article, if Andrew Luck were still playing, this would be year 11 right now.
Yeah.
For a quarterback in this day and age, we look at that as, all right, you're kind of in the middle of your career at this point, based on what the longevity looks like for these guys. Now, for Andrew, the injuries, the lacerated internal organs, like all of those things, very incredibly physically gifted player and all that. It was, I don't know, man, it was fascinating to see all of this. It was fascinating to hear him be so giving about how it affected his personal relationships. And what we always hear about, right? We always hear that line about players and coaches thanking their significant others, thanking their families for the sacrifices along the way. We usually get that in the Hall of Fame speech. Here it was, no, my girlfriend almost left my ass, my future wife and mother of my children, because I wasn't going to let her in, because I needed her to just occupy her role in the football game of life that I was quarterbacking. Like, that's, I'm sure, a shitty thing to say out loud about yourself or to consider about yourself in all of this. And Andrew Luck, based on this, seems to spend an awful lot of time considering himself. He seems like a very philosophical guy in a way that's not surprising given what we always thought about Andrew's personality.
Yeah, we had a friend who was teammates with him, Sergio Brown, and I can't remember when I linked up with Sergio, but he was telling me about Andrew Luck, and he said, while most guys are like, if you jog past, Sergio's always running off the field. He said you'll run past guys and you hear the conversations that they're having. He said, people are talking about strip clubs, baby mamas, family, like stats, what they're going to do in the next game, opponents. He says you jog by Andrew Luck, he's talking about like children in Africa and certain like disenfranchised stats and like his mind is elsewhere. It always has been, and that's one of those things that's like been like a cool superpower for him. It was always interesting to get Andrew Luck in front of a mic because you never know what he was going to say or what he was going to equate because he's just a different brain, right? I'm happy to see him get close to clarity, as he said, and I thought that was very powerful how he said it. He says he writes in a legal pad when he wakes up in the morning, just jots down a bunch of stuff, and he doesn't reread it again, and he doesn't do anything with it. He just feels like it gets him close to clarity to start the day, and I think that's something that people don't spend enough time thinking about for themselves, or even like how they communicate. I know I'm talking like no one knows what I'm saying half the time, but I'm saying like I'm like always like one deviation wrong a lot. So like me talking about clarity is hilarious, but it's something I consider it more after reading that article and considering for Andrew Luck's perspective of getting yourself to a position where you understand where you're at.
Oh, I hope that's something that, like, I hope a lot of players read this.
Right.
And I hope a lot of, like, college players read this. Because Andrew Luck has the means and the resources now to take care of himself. The NFL is a great head start for most guys, even if you don't have Andrew Luck's career, to give yourself a buffer while you figure out what's next. And the NFLPA is doing, I think, a better job of making sure that guys have access to therapists when they leave the league and to make sure you get set up to try and grapple with that transition. Because this article should show you no one's immune to that. No one's immune to that. There's varying degrees of it. How you can respond to it based on your means is different on the back end, but especially for college players, if you read that, like, start figuring out how to take care of and nurture that part of you that comes after all of this, because if not, it can be extremely difficult. The one thing I will say on the positive end in this article that I feel like not enough people were talking about, Andrew Luck, game by the pound.
Oh, okay.
So his wife, Nicole, who he met at Stanford, who was a gymnast and an accomplished gymnast.
And also a talented gymnast, so much that she created her own move on the balance beam. So
yeah, she was badass. Like fully apparent in this article. But it said they met at Stanford and Luck got her number by pretending to have lost his cell phone and asking her to call it. The guy that people saw, nice hit, Sizzle, and talking about Jack Doyle, I don't think is the one they would have equated with being smooth enough to pull that off. So I just wanted to give him his due, because I feel like so many people are going to spend time in this article like we did, looking at all the very serious stuff, looking at Andrew Luck and wondering if he's happy, and wondering, for a player that did give so much and seemed to have everything that everyone always wants when they look at quarterback, to be this, football, to be the successful quarterback for a franchise and for their college. He had all those things. And now we get a window into that world. That also just feels like the part like, all right, there is some of that quarterback in there. There's some of that stuff that we expect for you to be able to go out there and pull that smooth shit off.
He mentioned in the article that he had a flip phone specifically to simplify his life as a quarterback. Like it was a conscious decision. Do you know who else has a flip phone, Mike? Quarterback in college football right now? Stetson Bennett. Just throwing it out there. Just throwing it out there.
Hey, man, that's Heisman Trophy finalist Stetson Bennett to you, by the way. Brent, by the way, did you see this Stetson stat that was out there?
No, what's Stetson's stat?
Well, Stetson Bennett in 2022 is a Heisman Trophy finalist. Lamar Jackson in 2016 won the Heisman Trophy.
Don't do this.
Both of them were born in 1997. They're the same age.
What?
Yes, they are both 25 years old.
Lamar Jackson and Stetson Bennett, same kindergarten class.
Yes. Out here shitting their pants at the same damn time.
Oh my God.
Both dual threat quarterbacks.
My brain.
Yeah.
Okay, Mike, I can't do that. I'm not going to do the dual threat quarterback thing because I can't stop thinking about like them in class next to each other. Like, whew. Okay, that's cool. That's cool.
There you go. Little mind blower to send you out on a positive note here. But Brandon, you know what would send people out on an even better note?
Oh, shit.
If you told me what time it was.
Rocking around the Christmas tree, have a this, that, and the third. Everyone dancing merrily in a new old-fashioned way.
Oh, I don't know why you weren't confident about that one, man. That's a banger.
Thank you. It is a good one. It's a great one. There's just so many good Christmas songs. That's just like a very weird good one.
It's an embarrassment of riches this time of year. And
you know what? I've thought about it. Christmas songs, I don't know how great they are as much as they're like just really good interstitials in films.
that is true. They do pair very well. I will push back and say that Christmas songs are great year round. As someone who has listened to them in August before, still plays. Okay. If you agree, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, and review. Leave us a 5-star rating and a review, and tell Brandon how much you enjoy Christmas and Hanukkah songs in there. And if you've got any other holiday of this time of year from any various denomination or religion, please feel free to let us know. We are open to everything and everything in here. At Gojo Show on Twitter is where you go ahead and show that love. Brandon, let's go to Twitter. Let's get to this. So Major League Baseball's got a lot of free agent movement right now. We've seen Jacob deGrom sign with the Rangers. Justin Verlander's moving to the Mets. Trey Turner signed with the Phillies. Shit's flying fast and furious right now. But we know everyone's kind of waiting to see what happens with Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge, who went and broke Roger Maris's home run record this year for the Yankees, is now a free agent. The Yankees didn't sign him last year, so now we get a very cool possibility. And somebody jumped the gun. John Heyman, who is an MLB insider, on Tuesday went to tweet that Aaron Judge appears headed to the Giants. And quickly took that tweet down, apologized, said that he had jumped the gun on that one. He tweeted after and said, "The Giants say they've not heard on Aaron Judge. My apologies for jumping the gun." Problem is, not only did he not tweet that with the kind of information he needed to back it up, he also didn't spell it right, because he tweeted Arson Judge appears headed to the Giants. And it sparked the best version of Twitter possible when we get a hold of some dumb shit in a screen grab and make it live forever. And Brandon, him just being one letter off, got me to thinking what might be some of the other best names of athletes if you just changed one letter of their names in there. I went with Cookie Betts instead of Mookie Betts. Just sticking with baseball.
That's got to be top 5. Cookie Betts top 5 name change.
Now, one of the other ones I saw was instead of Bull was Bull LOL, which I thought was phenomenal.
I do like that one.
Kelly Schumacher tweeted a whole bunch of them. Mom Brady, Dad Prescott, Gosh Allen, Lustin Herbert. Russ LLL Wilson, which I thought was incredibly clever.
Russ LL.
Yeah. Sad Darnold.
Yes. Oh, man.
Carson Wentz.
He doesn't curse either, I don't think.
No, he doesn't. Noah Fart instead of Noah Fant from Keith Brake.
I like that.
Oh, this is obviously Shane Ryan, Fart Star.
Oh, Fart Star. Packers legend. Love it.
A lot of these got sexual, too. I feel like people have been taking their cues from you. Mario Escobar, James Hardon.
James Hardon's good. I like that.
I did think
was the Mario one?
What's that?
You said the Mario something before?
No, I didn't.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, you were just saying the person who said it.
Oh, yes, yes.
I was like, I don't know how that's sexual. Tell me about the Mario. What position is that?
That's why scoops are a dangerous game, man. All of this just underscores the fact why I stuck to strictly news that was given to me by friend and Notre Dame teammate Harrison Smith when he signed his new deal. Like,
oh yes,
I'm a one-time NFL newsbreaker. Broke Harrison Smith's third contract in the NFL with the Minnesota Vikings. Got all the accreditations. It was a wonderful rush to be an insider for a day. But Brandon, until one of our other Notre Dame friends does something and feels like giving me the scoop for some ungodly reason, I'm probably going to stay out of it, because this is what can happen. It's like when coaches talk about passing the football. 3 things can happen and 2 of them are bad. That's how it goes with the scoops game.
Wow. I like that. But also, Mike, I haven't stopped thinking about the fact that you can vote for the Heisman. I know we talked about this before, but since you brought up the fact that you also broke the Harrison Smith contract extension news, just something else cool. Something else cool that you do.
It's my goal to just corral enough little cool things to be considered somewhat cool, because I haven't really accomplished anything incredibly great. But I've accomplished a couple, like calling the hot dog contest was pretty cool. Like, there's a bunch of like little things in like that if you pool enough of them together. The Duke's Mayo thing was weird and provocative, but wasn't necessarily an accomplishment. So it's all about how you read it. You got to kind of spit shine it a little bit for it to look good.
Your miscellaneous drawer of cool accomplishments it's not bare. I'll say that.
No, but it is miscellaneous, and it's definitely a drawer, the junk drawer, a tale as old as time, song as old as rhyme. Brandon, let's get to that. We talked so much about the transfer portal yesterday. We neglected the greatest recruit in the country right now, Odell Beckham Jr., who is fully leaning into this shit, man. OBJ, however this works out, he's done this the exact right way.
Yeah, it's like going on little vacations. I'm sure his wife the mother of his child and his child are okay, because as a father, every time I see someone that I know has a young child out and about, I'm like, you dog, you lucky dog. But obviously everyone misses their kids as soon as they leave them. But he was at the Dallas Mavericks Phoenix Suns game with Micah Parsons and
Trevon Diggs.
Trevon Diggs. He's literally just going out and having fun, Mike. And this little wrinkle that you gave me makes me rethink all of these visits. I thought he was out there exhausted, hanging out at these things afterwards. No,
he's not going through workouts or anything. But this was the news today. The Dallas Cowboys have concerns about OBJ's physical, and that his recovery from a torn left ACL in the Super Bowl has not progressed enough to ensure that he would play before mid-January, according to ESPN's Ed Werder. There is a possibility that signing Beckham would have no benefit until 2023, the source added. So that's interesting, because we talked about this the other day and you brought this up, and I figured there was no way OBJ would be going out here unless everything was 100% buttoned up, that he was for sure going to be able to come back, because you had so long away from it. You weren't in a building with a team or anyone's medical staff, and so it's not like people had a chance to put hands on you. You were always going to have to go and show and tell that your knee was in a good enough place. And so I don't know if this is any kind of gamesmanship by the Cowboys to maybe think, I'd imagine other teams' medical staffs. I believe he's already met with the Bills and the Giants, and so I'm sure their medical staffs have also talked to him. With Jerry Jones, you never know if what he's playing close to the best, if there's any gamesmanship involved, or if this is just the truth, and this is a player who had a torn ACL in the last game of the season who might still be feeling some of the effects from that in a way that's very possible.
Yeah, I mean, my dumbass took him as my last spot for fantasy football just in case he came back. That was my Mr. Irrelevant pick. But I just feel like OBJ knows that he's not playing this season. That's why he's asking for these long contracts from these teams. And I also feel like Jerry Jones is doing him a solid by even acting like they want to sign him, because there's a little bit of that transfer portal recruiting thing that happens where it's like, oh, the Cowboys want him? Not that the Cowboys are like world beaters and have done great things, but
they're the Cowboys.
Yeah, exactly. They're the Cowboys. This is the star. So like the Jacksonville Jaguars might mess around and make him the highest paid free agent, because they give that Christian Kirk deal. But I think it helps OBJ that the Cowboys are even acting like they like him.
So, according to the NFL Players Association figures, the Cowboys have cap room enough to add him, but a multi-year deal would already complicate what's a tough salary cap situation for them going forward. They got a bunch of guys that are getting set to become unrestricted free agents. All that is to say, this could also be a leverage play for the Cowboys to try and make sure that they're just getting him for this season, and that if you're going to come here, it's got to be a prove-it deal. Because, realistically, you're buying him here to be the jetpack like he was in last year's postseason for the Rams. You're trying to get that sort of bump, even though your offense has quality receivers in it right now. Like what you've seen from CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup and all these guys. They haven't been short on weapons. Tony Pollard is an asset in their passing game. It would just be one more added to the fold. So it's not dire, but when you get to this point, especially like we've seen in this year's NFC, where so many of the teams are making a living on the ground outside of San Francisco, who doesn't have the quarterback right now, but has a ton of great offensive skill weapons, anything else that you can add into the pile, I guess, throw Philadelphia in there, obviously, too, a great wide receiver room there, But
as these offenses are opening up, Mike, like we just saw Taysom Hill against the Buccaneers, wide open on a wheel route. Like the wheel route is always open.
Always.
And they've been having CeeDee Lamb in the backfield with Dak Prescott some. I'd love to see OBJ run a wheel route. Like get more of these wide receivers in the backfield. Like you said with Tony Pollard. Pollard, obviously he's a running back, but there's something there. Like as much as OBJ took the Rams over the top last year, like you said, that jetpack, he's got to mean something to somebody.
Ultimately, I think if this is even close, I think the Cowboys end up doing this. Now, you can have the conversation about because I don't think the Giants would be in this conversation as far as if Odell Beckham Jr. wants a deep postseason run. I don't think the Giants are going to be it. I think that would be a Bills or a Cowboys conversation. Can absolutely talk about, hey, the Bills would probably be the better horse to back right now, the way that their offense has sometimes struggled in the red zone. You could say maybe he comes in there and alongside Gabe Davis and alongside Stephon Diggs there, that maybe all of a sudden it gives them that extra added boost, but it is still Dallas and the star, and Odell Beckham Jr. seems like a guy that would love what comes with being a Dallas Cowboy almost just as much as anything else. He was a guy that was went from New York to Cleveland, and we all looked at that and went, my God, that guy must be drowning in it. Then goes to Los Angeles, seems like a perfect fit. Dallas seems like another place that would be right in par with what Odell Beckham Jr., as far as being one of the biggest stars in the sport, would be down with. So we'll keep an eye out on that as it goes forward. But Brandon, it's time to get to the third, and you brought this to my attention yesterday. Shania Twain received the Music Icon Award and performed at the 2022 People's Choice Awards. Now, there are too many award shows at this point, and I feel like we hear of some version of an Icon Award or a Lifetime Achievement Award at a lot of these shows. You pointed out that the People's Choice Award has given out exactly 2 Icon Awards now in its history. The first going to Christina Aguilera last year, and the second going to Shania Twain this year. I am blown away, by the way, that we are at a point in life where Christina Aguilera is getting Lifetime Achievement Awards. That made me feel old in a way I wasn't ready for.
I'm pissed off that Christina Aguilera is getting Lifetime Achievement Awards before Shania Twain.
Christina Aguilera.
Order.
She was
Christina
Aguilera had them hits.
Of course she did, Mike. But Shania Twain won a couple of them awards back in the day. She won a People's Choice Award in 1998, 1999.
I'm just saying, Christina Aguilera had hits in all sorts of varieties. Like we had Dirty Christina Aguilera. We had that while where she was dressing up like a pinup model. We had all these different sights and sounds from one of the most powerful voices in music. So don't slander Christina Aguilera around here.
Can I tell you my favorite Christina Aguilera form?
Sure.
Lady Marmalade, Moulin Rouge,
dude. I'm telling you, she had these hits.
Her, Maya, Pink, Missy Elliott was singing. Little Kim. Oh, it was. There's another big star I'm missing in that group, but that was a time.
So Brandon, this all begs the question: considering we do get to watch this person perform a medley of their greatest hits, who should get the third Icon Award next year? Because now we're in, by the way, it's also worth pointing out, and this is another caveat here, Shania Twain was also performing her new song "Waking Up Dreaming" from her forthcoming album. So this is a little bit of one of those situations. Hey, you'll come and play our award show. We'll give you this nice award, but we'll also give you a chance to play the new stuff.
Right, and which we tolerate through for everyone who's well over 50, their new music. I'm going to say that. I think it's fair to say. And she's about to go on tour, Mike, starting in February. So this is a little jump start. So I think I want to consider that in what we're going to discuss next.
Can I tell you, by the way, just as an aside, how pissed I was one year? I went to Lollapalooza when I was still living in Chicago. So this had to be like 2014, 2015. And after Lollapalooza, some of the musical artists will go and play clubs or other venues around the city. And me and a bunch of my friends got tickets to a Third Eye Blind concert. And I was psyched, like we were going to go and listen to like the few Third Eye Blind songs that everyone knows, like Semi-Charmed, Jumper, all that stuff.
But could you give me like the little chorus? I know it.
I want something else.
Oh yeah,
and then
get me through this.
And then the other one, wish you would step back from that ledge, my friend.
Nope. Don't know that one.
Another popular one. But all that is to say about tolerating the new stuff. We get in there, we're all jacked up. We've been drinking all day. We're getting ready, and we got nice seats for this. And the lead singer of Third Eye Blind gets on the mic and goes, "We are so glad you guys came out here tonight. We know only the real fans would come over here, and that's why we're not going to play all that Billboard hit stuff. We're going to play you the deep cuts." And we're sitting there like, oh, shit, no, don't play any of those.
Please don't.
No.
We were going to have fun tonight.
Yeah, I'm going to sit here and awkwardly nod my head to a bunch of shit that I don't know. So, yes, you are 100% right about that. It is tolerating what this person's continued expanding musical portfolio. So, Brandon, do you have an artist that fits those criterias, who would be out here slinging some new music, who's got a medley that you'd like to hear, and that is now in our age range of people we grew up listening to, who are apparently in Icon Award range?
Mike, it seems funny you say Icon Award range because rappers seem to have to do a little bit less to get into that realm. I always say rappers need to just put out 2 really good albums, and it really is supposed to just usually be the first 2, and then you're good forever. So with that, Mike, I just feel like I would love to see Nelly perform all of his all of his hits.
Nelly accomplished more than that. Give him some credit. Like, I thought you were going to...
I'm giving him an Icon Award. What are you talking about?
But you said like he only had to do like 2 good things. Like, you had the Saint Lunatics, you had his solo stuff.
Well, I say that because I know for a fact that I have no tolerance for his new music because Suit and Sweat was trash. I bought the album. It was not worth the time.
Didn't he do that one song, Accidental Racist?
Don't know, Mike. I hope not, and I hope he didn't do that with Tim McGraw. But that's the thing, Mike. The variety.
Oh no, I'm sorry. That was, and boy, like you talk about accidental racist. Me just mixing it up with another artist. It was Brad Paisley and LL Cool J did Accidental Racist.
Why is LL Cool J doing that? I'm
mad
at him. He was one of the first of the rappers. Don't do that, sir. But outside of that, I Ludacris. Like I would like to see, but I think Nelly has the genre of like the different songs, like the Ride With Me, and then the hardcore rap songs, and then mix it in with the Over and Over Again. Like he's done enough for enough people, and he's got the stamina, Mike. I would like to see the Saint Lunatics out there too. Like he could end it with Grills, and then I'd put up with whatever new song he wants to talk to me about.
Would he have to wear the Band-Aid if he was performing as an icon?
I mean, is he going to wear Air Force Ones? Like, I mean, I need.
It is true.
Is this a legacy act or not? Like Shania Twain everyone's going crazy on Twitter because she was wearing an outfit paying homage to her "That Don't Impress Me Much" video from years ago. But
can I tell you that I was hoping that this would mean like, based on the criteria, it'd be awesome to hear some new music from Chingy. Like, what's he doing now? The problem with bringing a lot of these people up is I haven't heard of them long enough, and I have campaigned for a long time for a database with people's problematic behavior. Like, if someone did something that's bad enough that I need to know about and not say this person's name, I need a quick search that will, and I understand people are going to say, well, that's Google. It's something a little more concrete than that. Google's got a lot of pages. Like, I need to kind of just know if there's someone that's done something bad enough for me to not bring them up in a fun setting like this. Because I would love to hear Holiday In again.
Oh, I mean, yes. Ooh, speaking of that, Snoop Dogg. I mean, he could probably do that anywhere and it'd be great. But also, I like what you're saying, like kind of like the sex offenders list, where he just like pops up red for the names.
Yeah, like we just
you know what I mean, like this, like solid list.
Have you done something bad enough for me to not bring your name up in these kind of settings? That being said, Snoop Dogg would probably be the ideal one. He's still doing tons of current stuff. He's on a million commercials. He does sports commentating now for the Olympics and shit with Kevin Hart. All the above.
Just did the Super Bowl.
I will say though, my vote would be for the Backstreet Boys. They just dropped a new Christmas album, A Very Backstreet Christmas. In October, because they understand that Christmas music doesn't have to just be limited to December, but then you would get all of the good stuff from Millennium and the albums that we really love.
Yes, Mike, I was thinking about the Backstreet Boys earlier, and I was like, people don't give enough credit for the boy bands that are still alive. Like all of them. Yeah. Like all the members that are still with us. Like that's important.
You know what? And just celebrating boy bands in general, because being young and in those settings.
True.
Well, I mean, think about when we were making young pop stars in the late 90s and early 2000s. We've seen, in retrospect, all of the toxic things that were said to the women at that time, like Britney Spears and all the horrible things that went on there, and the pressure that was put on all these people. It usually does not go well. And so the fact that these guys would still be friendly enough to be making music together and all around to do this is absolutely something to celebrate with an award.
Yes, especially the bad boys of the group, because they had so much pressure to continue to do bad. Like, thank God AJ is still with us from the Backstreet Boys. Thanks God Lance Bass is still with us from the NSYNC. Like, we got to protect the bad boys too.
Gotta protect the bad boys.
Mike didn't hear me just call Lance Bass a bad boy.
All right, well, that being said, download, subscribe, rate, and review Gojo wherever you get your podcasts, and let us know who you would like to see receive it. I'd also, Brandon, I feel like seeing them make just this one award also made me think like we should just make up an award to give out to somebody as an excuse to get a guest to come on our podcast to receive the award.
Okay, Mike. Now you're talking content too, because I saw on ESPN the other day they were giving out awards for like fake things that happened in the game, like best catch that doesn't count, that Jamar Chase catch that went out of bounds, or like a best butt tackle with McKisson tried to run in the end zone or ran in the back of an offensive lineman and got tackled basically. I like the made up awards. Where'd you go with?
You know what? I'm not sure, and that's why I'm going to outsource it to the people. At Gojo Show on Twitter is where you let us know what fake award we should use to lure in a guest, or you can always download, subscribe, rate, and review. Leave us a 5-star rating and let us know there in the Apple Podcast or Spotify reviews. Make sure you check us out on the DraftKings YouTube channel as well. You could leave it as a comment there when you go to the Gojo of Mike Golick Jr. playlist. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Boom. Money in the bank.